During the post-Mauryan period, how art and architecture flourished in India, both in the north and the south, would be what we would be understanding today. So if we look onto the post-Mauryan period, if we focus on the central and the northern areas, it was basically four dynasties: the Shunga, Kanauj, Kushan and Gupta. However, when it came to the southern and the western parts of India, again four important dynasties: Satvana, Vakatakas, Ishwaku and Abhiras. So these four dynasties, those who were in the north and the central and those who were in the west and the south, were very important, and during this time we have seen numerous sites that give the way in which the art and architecture flourished in the country. So, what were the common centers of art and architecture? The finest samples were seen from Vidisha in Madhya Pradesh, also seen from Pavani. Pavani lies near Nagpur in Maharashtra. Near Pune, it was Bhaja, another important location. Then we have Jaghapet in the region of Andhra Pradesh, Udyagiri and Khandagiri caves in Odisha, the region of Bodh Gaya, and then Mathura in Uttar Pradesh. So those were some of the prominent centers from where art and architecture and the samples were received, the sculptures were seen. So this would be a broad outlook about how we would understand the post-Mauryan art and architecture, the various schools. For example, in the Mathura we had the Mathura school, then we had the Sarnath school near Varanasi. So all these were important centers of art and architecture development. Similarly, we had Bharhut. Bharhut lies in the Satna region of Madhya Pradesh, and the king Dhanabhuti was responsible or was one of the major donors of the Bharhut sculptures that were seen. To begin with, Bharhut sculptures have been the most important ones. Now, Bharhut is one of the regions in the Satna district of Madhya Pradesh, and this was the area where numerous Buddha stupas have been seen. Now, what was so special and unique about the sculptures found in Bharhut? Bharhut showed narrative panels of few characters in the beginning. However, later on the number of characters increased. Now all the images of Yaksh and Yakshini that were seen in the Bharhut sculptures was either a single main event or there were multiple of those images which were seen. Most of the images had a display with folded hands or hands placed in certain position. The dressing of the stone slab was very important. So initially the stone slab was taken, the stone slab was properly dressed, and then the sculpting of the human body took place on the stone slab. So as you can see here, the images of Yaksh and Yakshini have been important. Most of the images were illusions of 3D realities or three-dimensional perspective, and the perspectives were tilted. Also, later on, there were numerous natural progressions which were seen. For example, deep carvings, good volume and naturalistic representation of human or animal bodies was revealed as a part of Bharhut sculptures. Most of the communication stories were represented only in pictorial form. We would understand two of such stories in a while, how pictorial forms were depicted in the means of stories. And here most of the Buddha statues that were seen had knotted headgear. So the knotted headgear was one of the classic features of Bharhut sculpture for Buddha statues. Now, coming on to the pictorial language, as we said, most of the communication stories were pictorial. One such interesting story was about Queen Maya Devi. Maya Devi was the mother of Siddhartha Gautam, and it is believed that one day Maya Devi was lying and witnessed an elephant in the dream, and that time she was reclining on the bed, and this was an indication of an elephant pointing towards the womb of the mother. And this was one of the pictorial narratives of the dreams of Maya Devi. And most of the sculptures, as we saw this sculpture, represent the pictorial stories. We would understand one more pictorial story in a while. Most of the sculptures that have been seen in Bharuch have been preserved in Indian Museum, Kolkata. So Kolkata Museum has the pictorial depictings from Bharuch sculpture. Now, this was another pictorial depiction of a story. Now, this story is of the Ruru Jatak. Now, Jatak stories have been short stories, and these are pictorial trails of the sequence of events that happened, depicted in a very simple and a lively manner. Now, this story, as we move forward, was a story of Ruru deer. Now, Ruru was one of the unique deer. It is believed that this was the most beautiful deer that could be seen, and was also considered as a golden deer. Now, this deer was so beautiful that people who passed by the forest area wanted to have a witness of the Ruru deer. One day, this deer was going and saw a man fighting for existence in the water or in the river. Now, Ruru felt very bad about it and gave help to that person. With all the struggle, he made the person sit on his back and took him forward to his original destination. The person, when returned back, thanked Ruru deer for all the help that was provided, but at the same time, Ruru promised him not to tell anyone that I am a very, very special deer, I am a golden deer, and this secret that I reside at this place should lie between you and me. No third person should ever know about it. Now, this was all done, and the person returned back to his native place. One day, the king of the region was asked by the queen. The queen saw this Ruru deer in one of the dreams, and it is believed that the queen was so much wanting to meet that deer that she asked king to take a promise to bring this deer by any means. And the king had no other alternative but declared in the village that anyone who would bring the deer to me or would tell me where the deer is would be given one village and more than a few people that would be part of the kingdom, and few princes as well. Now, this brought this man to the king's palace, and this man told where the Ruru deer lives. Now, the king got very excited that I'll make my queen happy. I'll know where the Ruru deer is, and I'll bring this Ruru deer back to the queen. So, what happened was, the king, along with this man, took the path to the forest area. The man told the exact location where the Ruru deer lives. Now, when Ruru deer was brought forward, Ruru, in the language of human beings, asked the king, you can definitely kill me, but first tell me who told you that I live here. The king, at the sudden movement, pointing the gun from the deer, pointed the gun towards the person and said that this is the man who brought me here. The Ruru deer was totally upset, and Ruru deer explained the king how the whole episode went and how I took a promise from this person that my place of residence would not be disclosed to anyone, but this person was not at all loyal. He was totally disloyal, and Ruru deer shattered into tears. But this was not just the Ruru deer. The king also shattered into tears, and the king was able to understand the concern that Ruru deer has raised, and therefore wanted to kill this person. But Ruru deer pledged that please let this person go, do not kill this person. Now, after all this, the king asked that my queen wants to see you, and therefore Ruru deer finally agreed. Ruru deer went with the king to the palace, remained there for a few days, and returned back to his native forest later on. So this is a Jataka story, and this Jataka story of Ruru deer has been represented in the Bharut sculpture. So it is a series of pictorial events that help us understand how the story proceeded. So those kind of art marvels were seen in the time of the sculptures that have been seen in Bharut. Sanchi Stupa is another important location that we need to understand. But during this time, three important locations, Sanchi in Madhya Pradesh, Mathura in Uttar Pradesh, and Vengi in Guntur in Andhra Pradesh were three of the regions where stylistic progression in art and architecture was seen. In Sanchi, there were three stupas, Stupa 1, Stupa 2 and Stupa 3. The Stupa 1 had the lower and the upper Path Pradakshina Path, or the Pradakshina Path as it is called as, the circumambulatory path around any place of worship. The entrance was decorated with toran. We would understand how the structure of Sanchi Stupa looks like. Sanchi originally is a place very close to Bhopal, just 50 kilometers from Bhopal, the headquarters of Madhya Pradesh, and this is considered as a World Heritage Site. The Stupa 1 explains the relics of Buddha. The Stupa 2 talks about the relics of 10 less famous Arhat who belong to 3 different generations, and their names have been found in the relics there. Finally, Stupa 3 talks about the relics of Sariputtu and Mahamolagyan. So those were the 3 Sanchi stupas that have been important. Now this Sanchi stupa in itself is a World Heritage Site, and what is so special about it? Let's understand it. The top of the stupa is known as Chhatri. Outside the Chhatri, Harmika has been created, and the dome is known as Anda. Now the next is the circumambulatory path. So there are 2 paths. One is the lower path and one is the upper path. The upper path is very unique to Sanchi Stupa. It's not commonly seen, and these paths are also known as Path Pradakshina Path. Now, outside the lower circumambulatory path, we have the Vedika, and the gates, there are 4 gates on the 4 sides, and these are known as Toran. Now why Toran is important? There are 2 vertical structures with 3 horizontal bars, and below the 2 vertical structures are the Shala Bhanjika. The Shala Bhanjika are the structures of lady holding the branch of trees, and that is seen at the bottom of the 2 vertical pillars of the Toran. Now, the Ashokan lion capital pillar with the inscription has also been found on the southern side of the stupa of Sanchi, and therefore have been important. As we say, the 4 gateways have been considered very, very important, and the Toran are an important part of it. Also, the Jataka stories, the representation within the stupa, have been done by the pictorial reels of the communication stories. Those are known as Jataka. So these Jataka stories have been important. Now, within the Sanchi sculptures, we have seen a little difference from the Bharut structure. Sanchi structure usually have naturalistic poses, and there is no stiffness of the body. Reduced rigidity in the contour formations of the body has been seen, and the narratives are much more elaborate as in contrast to the Bharut sculptures. So Sanchi sculptures have more elaborated narratives, and the carving techniques have been much more advanced. We can see the figure of the seas of Kushinara and how the whole trail goes in this depiction as it has been represented. So as we said, the body compositions had been very, very fine. The poses had been more naturalistic as compared to Bharut structure, and less stiffness in the body with reduced rigidity flexibility of the contours has been seen. Most of the symbols that are represented here again are of Buddha or Manushi Buddha or the traditional Buddha. Now under the traditional Buddha concept, there are 24 Buddhas, but of that only the first, which is the Dipankar, or the last 6 could be represented in pictorial forms. So only these Buddha could be represented in the pictorial forms. As we explained, the narratives were much more elaborate, and the depiction of Maya Devi dream, as was seen in the Bharuch sculpture, similar depictions have been seen in Sanchi sculptures as well, but it is much more elaborate, much more expansive in nature. Seas of Kushinara, Buddha's visit to Kapilavastu, and visit of Ashok to Rangapuram Stupa Ramgram Stupa are some of the representations that have been seen as part of Sanchi sculptures. So those are some of the ways under which the Sanchi Stupa and the Sanchi sculptures have been very, very unique. The difference between Mathura Sarnath and Gandhara School of Art. Now, as we know, Gandhara School of Art is the present day region of Kandahar in the northwest Pakistan and the regions close to Afghanistan. So that is the region of Gandhar. Then we have Mathura and Sarnath in Uttar Pradesh. Now, what was the difference in the kind of school of architecture and the structures that were seen? All of these three represented Buddha in one form or the other, but the way in which they represented was very, very different. The first important difference was in the region of Gandhar, the grey sandstone was used. However, in the regions of Mathura, red sandstone was used, and in the region of Sarnath, Chunar sandstone was used. Now this is based on the material, what was the difference in the structure. The Kandahar school and the Mathura school reached their peak during the time of Kanishk. So during the rule of Kanishk, Mathura School of Architecture and Kandahar School of Architecture reached its peak. Kandahar School of Architecture, the Gandhar School was famous because it was an amalgamation of Indian and Greek style. So, due to the Greek and the Roman influence, the statues of Buddha were considered more like Apollo gods and had Roman dressing, so garlands, centuries were commonly seen. Mathura style, on the other hand, usually had mud, and body details were not very finely expressed in Mathura style. Sarnath style explained the sitting version of Buddha, preaching lessons are the part of Dharma Chakra Parivartan, which was the sermons, basically the preachings that were given. The throne was decorated with motifs, and that was one of the major characteristics of Sarnath style. So let's focus on each of these three styles one by one. So to begin with, we would talk about the Mathura style. Now the Mathura style was so unique. Under the Mathura style, the Usha Nisha, that is the headgear, was vertical and, as you could see, was arranged in a much more systematic way. The drapery, the cloth, was seen from the left shoulder towards the body, and that was again one of the major depictions that were seen in the Mathura style. In the Mathura style, one of the hands was seen on the thigh, showing masculinity. The other hand was seen giving blessings. The next important part were the two members, the Padmapani and the Vrajapani. Vrajapani had the Vraj or the thunderbolt, and Padmapani, as the name suggests, Padma had the lotus. So both of them with their thrones were seen in the back of the Buddha, and Buddha was seen as a kind of broad shoulder picture with more of kind of fleshy body which was seen. So Mathura style was very, very different, very, very unique. Now the Sarnath style, in contrast to Mathura style, showed a transparent drapery covering both the shoulders, not just one of the shoulders, and the halo around the head showed little ornamentation. However, as we could see in the Mathura style, the decoration was very profuse or very intense. Also, the Mathura style focused on a kind of more deeper personality. However, on the other hand, the Gandhar style showed the calmness of Buddha. So that was again one of the major difference. The halo around the head of the Buddha was very large in Mathura style of architecture, and most of the region surrounding the halo was decorated with geometrical patterns or geometrical motifs. So as you can see here, most of the decoration was geometrical, and the flexibility which was seen in the earlier styles was replaced by more rigidity and kind of a earthy look which was seen in most of the images. The face of Buddha was considered as more round, and the cheeks were considered as fluffy. That was again one of the most important difference between the Mathura style and the Gandhara style. In the Gandhara style, the face was not exactly kind of round face with fleshy cheeks that were seen. So coming on to Gandhara style, what was so unique about the Gandhara style? As we said, Gandhara style was influenced by the Greek Roman sculptures. The hair of Buddha were curly and a knotted headgear was usually seen. The curls were mainly wavy in nature. The ears were elongated. The eyes were half closed, as you can see here. So elongated ears, eyes were half closed, and heaviness of the figure was seen. The drapery was seen across the body. It was not just one of the shoulders, and Buddha was seen in a calm residing position. Most of the face reveals a three-dimensional naturality in the structure, and traits from Bactrian, traits from Parthian or Achaemenid civilizations or traditions were also part of the Gandhara style, and it proved to be a good amalgamation of the Indian and the Greek style. A lot of images have been found in the Gandhar region as well, the region surrounding Gandhar as well, and most of the narratives of the life of Buddha explained in the Jataka stories represent Buddha or Bodhisattva in this form. So those were some of the classic features of Gandhara style. Coming on to Sarnath style. Sarnath style, the body was much more slender. As we said, drapery was seen on both the shoulders, and the most important thing was Buddha was shown in a meditating position, and that showed the idea of the Dharma Chakra Parivartan or the preachings of Buddha, the Sarnath where it started. As we mentioned, the body was slender, elongated, the face was not exactly round, was again a little less round as compared to the Mathura style. The ears were longer, the earlobes were longer, the eyes were half closed, but the lower lip here was much more protruding, and that made it a little unique. The face was relatively rounder as compared to the Gandhara style. So those was one of the major difference, and during the Kushan period, a lot of sculptures of Sarnath times were also seen. Now, the Ushanisha or the head knot usually showed curly hairs in contrast to the wavy hairs as depicted in the Gandhara style. Most of the central part of the halo was plain without anything that was marked, and then outside it was the decoration. As we said, the drapery that was used to cover was transparent in the times of Sarnath style. However, it was not so in the Mathura style. Also, another important thing to note here was the the structure was much more systematic in fashion, with a kind of wheel that was shown at the bottom of the Buddha, and then we had the people around the structure that was shown. So again, a very important element which was part of the Sarnath was the Dharma wheel, or the chakra as it is called, as which was a kind of association to the concept of Dharma Chakra Parivartan. So those were some of the important characteristics. To repeat again, the earlobes were big, eyes were half closed, the lower lip was protruding, and the face was less rounder as compared to the Mathura style, but more rounder as compared to the Gandhara style. So those were the major differences, as you can see here. And here again, the Padmanabhi and the Vajrapani were seen as part of the structures or the stupas of Buddha in certain cases. Coming on to the broad differences. Now, Gandhara style, as we know, was a style of Buddhist visual art. However, Mathura style deals with also Jainism, Hinduism, which includes both the Vaishnavites and the Shaivites. The Gandhara style, since was influenced by the Greek-Roman civilization, had the Hellenistic view. However, the Mathura style was much more modeling Buddha on the basis of Yaksha and the Yaksha images. In the Gandhara style, the calmness of the face was seen. However, in the Mathura style, Buddha was shown to be very delighted and was seated in a Padmasana pose with the right hand in the Abhay Mudra, as we mentioned, and the left hand on the thigh, representing masculinity. In the Gandhara style, as mentioned before, the eyes were relatively longer, the earlobes were relatively well defined, with the lobes longer. However, in the Mathura style, the lips were much more thicker and the eyes were relatively wide. Gandhara school used grey sandstone, Mathura school used red sandstone, and Sarnath school used Chunar sandstone for the construction of the images. And also, Gandhara school of architecture flourished from the 1st century BC till the 5th century AD. However, this had its origin, the Mathura school had its origin only somewhere around the 1st century AD. During the 2nd century BC, so all this style, the Gandhara school, which flourished during the 1st century BC, had the various images which were clearly representing Buddha. During the 2nd century BC, the images of Mathura were the images that were seen in Mathura talked about much more clear depictions of Buddha with rounder appearance and broader appearance, broader shoulders as part of the sculptures. During the 3rd century, the volume became much more larger. Okay, the body became much more broader to be expressed in the images. During the 4th century, the most important development was the drapery. The volume of the drapery that was used changed, and the structure became much more confined, much more rigid. However, during the 5th and the 6th century, the drapery was slowly integrated into the mass, and therefore during the Sarnath school, we say the transparent drapery was usually depicted. So those were some of the major differences that have been witnessed in contrast in the Gandhar and the Mathura school. The differences have been very important. As we saw in the various styles of Mathura, Sarnath and Gandhar, the Gandhar style even showed Buddha with moustache. Now moving forward, the stupas that were constructed were later on modified and Brahminical temples started to develop. The main feature of these Brahminical temples were that they had a principal image of God. An image of God symbolized these temples, and most of the stories related to Puran move around the spaces. So these temples had deities and images of deities which were part of it. Now these shrine temples were classified into three criteria. One were the Sandhara, that were the temples which did not had the Pradikshina Path. The next was the Nirandharas. Nirandharas had the Pradikshina Path around the temple, and the last was the Sarvotra Bhadra. Sarvotra Bhadra were the temples that had access from all sides. Now this is an example of the background example is an example of the Shiv temple that is seen from Nanchakutra. Now Nanchakutra is one of the major locations. If we move on to the northern parts of India, the regions in Uttar Pradesh, we have Devgarh, then we have Iran, and then Nanchakutra are some of the important locations. And then besides that, we also had Vidisha as one of the important locations, Udayagiri near Vidisha. We also have Udayagiri in Odisha. So the two locations are different. Now these were some of the locations that had the importance of temples and the Brahminical forms of temples which were witnessed. Moving towards west, in the regions of North Gujarat, was the area of Devni Mor. Devni Mori was one of the areas where most of the region saw Buddhist structures, stupas were seen, and this was one of the areas outside the Indo-Gangetic plain that witnessed the Buddhist stupas and kind of slender images with transparent drapery of Buddha were seen. Now in the west, what were the kind of Buddhist structures? So three major architectural types were famous. First was the apsidal vaulted roof with the Chaitya hall. Now these were the samples that are found in Ajanta, Pithalkhora and Bhaja. The next is the apsidal vault roof which did not have pillars. It was a pillarless hall, and the examples are seen from Thana Nadsur. So Thana Nadsur had pillarless halls which were seen. So three types again. One was the Chaitya hall with pillars and apsidal. Apsidal is a kind of structure seen on the top of the Chaitya hall, and this is a semicircular in structure. The next was the flat roofed the quadrangular hall with a circular chamber that was seen deep at the back of it, and this is seen in Kondivite. So those are the three major architectural types, the types through which the Buddha statues were seen. Now the front of the Chaitya hall was usually having a dominant motif structure, and the Chaitya hall had arches with open front area, and that was one of the major peculiar features. Now this, as you can see, Ajanta Cave 9 is an example of the structure that we mentioned. It was a deep inside structure with the Chaitya hall at the end, or the circular dome which was placed at the end. Now similar structures have been seen in Bhedsa, Nasik, Ajanta, Karla, Kanheri caves. So Karla caves, Kanheri caves are some of the major caves. Now in Karla, the biggest rock cut Chaitya structure was excavated. The cave has an open courtyard with two major pillars, and the idea was a good veranda was seen. The roof was there to protect it from rain, and kind of heavy structures were built, and towards the end was the dome shaped structure or the stupa towards the end. Now these cave interiors have not been fully finished, and many of the cave carvings have been seen as in progression. That means some of the works have been left in the middle or has been damaged. The findings are yet to be there. So those are some of the important elements of the stupa caves. The next was the Vihara caves. Now under the Vihara caves, the Ajanta, Bhedsa and Nasik caves are the most popular. Viharas have been excavated in nearly most of the cave sites, and the plan of the vihar is very simple. It is simply a veranda. Along with the veranda there is a hall, and then there are cells. Now these cells are around the walls of the hall. So each of the wall of the hall has cells which are present, and this is a classic structure of the vihara. Now, Nasik Vihara cave 3, 10 and 17 have been important. The front has been carved with the Ghanta base and the Ghat capital. Now, these have human figures that have been represented and depicted on it. Similarly, Ajanta cave 12 and Bhedsa cave 11 have been important examples of it. Similar to it, in Junar, there is another important structure which is known as Ganesh Leni. Now, since the name suggests, it is a statue of Ganesh that has been seen in this region. Besides Junar, there have been Ajanta, Ellora, Nasik, Bhedsa, Bhaja as some of the major centers where the viharas have been witnessed. It is also seen that in the earlier regions, the image of Buddha was absent. However, some of those people believe that this was because of the orthodox sect of the Buddhist philosophy. Those were the Theravadins, and it was because that the people were Theravadins, they did not had the Buddha image. But later on, with the discovery of Konkan Mauryan inscriptions, it was revealed that these people were not Theravadins, but there was images that had existed and later on were not found. So at some point of time there were images, but later on these were not found in the caves. So that was a kind of another viewpoint that was brought after the Konkan Mauryan inscriptions which were discovered in around 400 AD. So that is how we see Buddhist temples that is spread to the western part of India. But it was not just the western part of India. Even the southern part of India witnessed numerous Buddhist temples and Buddhist stupas that came into existence. So in South India, we had numerous areas where Buddhist monuments have been found. It was mainly the area of Andhra Pradesh, the Vengi area, which witnessed numerous Buddhist stupa and sites. So the first one that we would understand is Sanati. Now Sanati witnessed one of the largest stupa site, and this had the stupas similar to Amravati. Note, this Amravati is the Amravati of Andhra Pradesh, not the Amravati of Maharashtra, and this was decorated with sculptural relief. The next important site is Anekapalli. Anekapalli is close to Vishakhapatnam, and it is a place where huge rock cut stupa has been witnessed during the 4th and the 5th century, and this was again one of the biggest rock cut stupas that have been found in India. So Anekapalli again important. Now besides this region of Andhra Pradesh, even in the region of Odisha, we had the Udayagiri and the Khandagiri caves. So Udayagiri and the Khandagiri caves have been important. It is believed that Udayagiri and Khandagiri caves in Odisha represented the inscriptions of the Kharvela king, and it had many of the monuments even from the Jain monks. It had huge independent boulders which were created, and many of the shapes of animals was even given. Numerous narratives and folklores have been seen. As we have seen in most of the Buddhist sculptures, we have witnessed Jataka stories, the stories or the folklores that come as a narrative. So similar narratives have been seen in Udayagiri and Khandagiri caves, and these talk about the series and the basic idea similar to the Jataka stories. Now, all the big caves included a cave with the pillared veranda, and these pillared veranda had cells towards the back of the side. Those cells were decorated in the series with the Chaitya hall, and therefore created a very good example of qualitative carving. The caves were highly voluminous, and some of the complexes have been even excavated in the later period. The next important location is Guntapalle. Now Guntapalle is a rock cut cave which is near Eluru, and it has has small apsidal and circular Chaitya halls. Now apsidal, as we said, is a semicircular termination or the recessing area of the building. Now here independent Buddha images have been witnessed. Now independent Buddha images have not only been witnessed in Guntapalli, but besides that also in the Nagarjun Konda, in the regions of Amravati, in the regions of Guntapalli, as we already mentioned, had independent Buddha statues. Now Guntapalli in Eluru district is important because the circular halls and the Chaitya halls that were carved here were relatively smaller as those found in the western parts of India, in the regions of Karla, Kanheri, Ajanta, Ellora caves. So here the circular Chaitya halls, the Chaitya caves which are circular were relatively smaller. The Chaitya arch was seen at the entrance, and then after the entrance there was a circular hall which was represented. Also, many of the Vihara caves have been witnessed. These Vihara caves were again shorter in dimensions as compared to Western India, and these Vihara caves also had the Chaitya arch in the beginning of it or towards the front of it, starting of it. Also, Rameralapallam had some of the major excavation sites which were witnessed. Next to it were two important locations, the Nagarjun Konda, which is the present day Nagarjun Hills, and the region of Goli. Both of these had numerous images of Buddha, and they created an effect where protruding surface of the body was witnessed. The volume of these caves were much more as considered or as compared to the Amravati caves or the Amravati sculptures. So Amravati sculptures had similar features, but here the protruding surface of the body was one of the major features and characteristics. Coming on to Amravati, as we said, Mahachaitya was one of the major features of Amravati, and the most important location in Amravati, the stupa, was that the Pradikshina Path was within the Vedika. In the Sachi stupa, we talked about how the Pradikshina Path can be to the circumambulatory path. Now this could be the lower and the upper one, and outside that you had a Vedika. So here the Pradikshina Path has been enclosed with a Vedika, and these Vedika has the narrative sculptures. Now the features that have been found in the region of Amravati, Andhra Pradesh in the Buddhist monuments have been unique. Firstly, the body structure shows three bend, and therefore it is known as the Tribhag monuments. The figures are very, very slender, the emotions are intensely depicted, and the sculptural monuments here have higher complexity in compared to the Sanchi Stupa. The linearity slowly becomes more and more flexible. More 3D space is created by adding more volume, angular bodies and overlapping figures, and the narrative life of Buddha and Jataka stories have been represented. Even the birth event of Queen Maya Devi have been represented in the Amravati caves. So the same story of the Queen Mayavati and her dreams where she saw the elephant have been represented. Now, as we saw, the Amravati, the construction was witnessed in the early stages during the 3rd century, but it was also developed with more complexities and more variety, and the early phases of the Amravati show the region devoid of Buddha, however the Buddhist statues. However, the later period shows the region with slabs and the drums where Buddha statues and Buddha was depicted. So both of the things have come simultaneously. In most of the region, as we have seen, the early phases showed the region devoid of Buddha images. However, the later period showed the region with the Buddha images, and that has been important. So those were some of the Buddhist monuments in the southern part of India. Elephanta Caves. Now Elephanta Caves are located near Mumbai, and they were originally the Buddhist site. Later on, we also see the Shav sculptures and the Shavarites who have been considering Elephanta as one of their major centers of worship. The monuments in the Elephanta caves show slender body, and then there is stark light and dark effect which are seen in the monuments of Elephanta caves. It was not just the Elephanta caves, but during that period we also had the Bagh region in the region close to Indore in Madhya Pradesh. Besides that, the Badamis and the Aihols under Chalukya in Andhra Pradesh, then in the Vijayawada, then in the region of Mahabalipuram under Pallavas. All of those witnessed similar kind of cave structures and monuments. The most important feature of the Elephanta cave is the feature of Mahesh Murti. Now the image of Mahesh Murti at Elephanta caves is important. In most of the figures, Shiv is shown with 5 faces. Here there are 3 faces of Shiv which are shown. One is the Shiv, the other is the Uma and the Bhairav. So Bhairav, Shiv and Uma are the 3 characters or the 3 faces that are shown. The qualitative achievement of this structure is very important. The Shiv is shown in a profile-like round face with meditating eyes, closed eyes, heavy eyelids, thick lips, and most of the facial features are protruding in nature. Uma is considered one of the feminine characters of Shiva, who is the consort of Shiv, and on the other hand is Bhairav, who is full of anger with bulging eyes and moustache. Now all 3 of them have different kinds of crowns that are shown, and the 2 different features of Shiva on the top and the back are not visible in the Mahesh Murti at Elephanta. Also, as per the iconic presentation, this is considered as one of the most unique and one of the most remarkable sites, which is known for its smoothness, its rhythmic movements in the structures that have been excavated in the Elephanta caves. And most importantly, this Elephanta cave represents or has huge similarity with cave 29 of Ellora. So Ellora caves again had lot of Shiva caves, and here the Mahesh Murti at Elephanta, the cave represents or is very resembles very similarly to cave 29 of Ellora. Ellora caves in the region of Aurangabad have been another important site of the architectural marvel. We have 32 caves that are seen in Ellora, and the most important and the interesting part of these is there are 3 kinds of caves that are seen. So we have Buddhist caves, we have Brahmanical caves, and also the Jain caves that are seen. Now, of this, the caves 13 to 28 are the caves which have Brahmanical structures. The most important thing is most of the caves here are considered to be as Shaivite cave, Shaivite caves, but we do have the Shaivite as well as Vaishvanite caves, that is Shiv as well as Vishnu caves that are represented here. Now cave 16 is known as the Kailash Lini cave, and as the name suggests, it talks about Kailash or Shiv. Similarly, cave 21 and 29 are exclusively Shaivite caves or have Shiv deities that are represented. We already know that cave 29 of Ellora is in resemblance to the Elephanta caves and therefore is very important. Then cave 14, 16, 17, 21 and 29 are known for their architectural marvel, the vigorous movements of the figures, and the monumentality is very unique. The most important thing that we need to understand is various guilds came in to create the Ellora caves. So people came in from Vidarbha, from Karnataka, from Tamil Nadu, and therefore such huge diversity and uniqueness was seen in Ellora caves. Another important and interesting fact is that Ellora caves has one story, 2 2-story as well as 3-story structures which are seen. However, Ajanta caves only had structures up to 2-story that are seen. So that is again one of the very unique things that are found in the Ellora caves. Now Ellora cave 12 is so unique because it has 3-story structure, and here we have images of Buddha and Tara, Manushi Buddha, Ashok Bhai, Amitabh, Amok Siddhi, Vajraraj and so on. All these caves have been plastered and painted, but nothing visible is left as of now. The most common features that we could see in most of the caves are the image of Padmapani and Vrajrapani, that is the thunderbolt and the lotus that was seen, as we have discussed in the previous Buddhist classes. All the pillars that are seen in Ellora caves have been exclusively massive in nature. Cave 14 is unique because it is a 2-story cave, and most of the Brahminical faith have dedication to these caves. As we said, both the Shaivite and the Vaishnavite themes are seen. The Vaishnavite themes have close depictions with the life of Vishnu and the avatars of Vishnu which are represented. On the other hand, the caves which talk mainly about the Shiva talks about Ravan shaking the Mount Kailash. There is the Kalyan Sundara and the various roop or the various forms of Shiva, the various mudras of Shiva which are witnessed. So therefore, these Ellora caves have been very unique. A quick glimpse again, 32 caves following Buddhist, Brahminical and Jain caves. Cave 13 to 28 belonging to Brahminical faith, and of which the Shaivite caves or the caves which belong to the Shiv philosophy have been important. Cave 29, which resembles the Elephanta caves, the Mahesh Murthy at Elephanta, is again one of the very important caves, and cave 12 is the only 3-storied cave in the Ellora caves. So again, very important. Ajanta caves. Now Ajanta caves also lie in the Aurangabad district, similar to the Ellora caves. The most important feature is Ajanta caves have 29 caves in contrast to Ellora caves which have 32 caves. In Ellora, most of the caves had Buddhist, Brahminical and Jain caves that were witnessed, and 1-story, 2-story and 3-story caves. However, in Ajanta, it is only 1 and 2-story caves that are seen. Now within these caves, Cave 9 and 10 have been considered as Chaitya caves during the earlier phase, the 1st century. However, Cave 19 and 20 have been considered as Chaitya caves again, but during the later period of around 5th century. So this was around the 1st century, Cave 9 and 10, Cave 19 and 26 around the 5th century. Now, Cave 9, 10, 12 and 13, as we said, belong to the earlier phase, and cave 11, 15 and 6 belong to the upper and the lower period. Cave 7 is so unique because the phase is earlier than the later 5th century. Now again, cave 26 is unique. So cave 26 is very big, and there is an entire interior hall which is carved with Buddha images, and the biggest one of which is Mahaparinibhab image. So Mahaparinibhab image is again important. The rest of the caves are Vihar Chaitya caves. So these are the Chaitya caves, and the remaining ones are the Vihar Chaitya caves. Now Vihar Chaitya cave, as we know, have pillared veranda. They have cells along the walls and a pillared hall which is part of the Vihar. So Chaitya Vihara caves and Vihara caves, we understand that. Ajanta is the only surviving example of paintings that could be seen from the 1st century and the 5th century. So again, very important, the only surviving painting art can be witnessed. There can be no precise chronology because of the unknown dated inscriptions that have been witnessed. Now coming on to the shrines at Ajanta. The shrines at Ajanta are big in size We have unfinished Vihar caves which are seen, and these are the numbers for those: 5, 14, 23, 24, 28 and 29. Now, most of the caves have paintings. The caves that have paintings mainly are 1, 2, 16 and 17. So these are the caves that have paintings that are still visible. And as we said, Ajanta is the only example of the surviving paintings from the 1st and the 5th century. Now, some of the patterns for cave 16 have been witnessed by Varahadev, and he was the prime minister of Vakataka king Hari Sen. Similarly, Upendra Gupta, who was the pattern of caves 17 to 20, was a local king of the region of Vakataka king Hari Sen. And then we have pattern of cave 26, Buddha Bhadra, and then Mathura Das from cave 4 pattern. So he was the pattern of cave 4. So Mathura Das, Buddha Bhadra, Varahadev and Upendra Gupta have been important, and the roles have been important. Now, as we said, the figures in the caves that were drawn were heavy. They had the sculptures and the tint of the Western India. As similar to Ellora, numerous guilds moved to Ajanta to have the features which were drawn in Ajanta. So there was a wide variety and an amalgamation of the various people coming from Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Vidarbha area. The cave 9 and 10 are very important because these reveal the kind of thoughts. Now the cave 10, we have the afterthought which is evident from the post plastering, which was the plastering over the earlier inscriptions which were already inside the caves. And cave 9 is an example of pre-planning. Both of them belong to the 1st century, and most of the regions have been decorated with paintings. And the idea here is that the colors that were used during that time were very limited, but still very sharp and beautiful. Now here is an example of the paintings which are still alive from cave 17. As we said, cave 1, 2, 16 and 17 are the caves where we still see the Ajanta paintings. Now cave 17 paintings have been very important. Most of the figures have been beautifully depicted. There have been sharp strokes of brown color which are witnessed, and the figures are considered closer to naturalism. There is no over stylization of the figures that is done. The cave excavation and the paintings have been simultaneously processed, and therefore the time at which the paintings came, the dating of the paintings became much more easier. There have been little topographical variations in the various caves, and as the contours and the lines of the paintings have been drawn, it depicts a very precise and a cleaner structure that was given, highlighting the major figural compositions and the figurine arts. Also, there have been narratives that are part of the cave paintings. The next is the cave paintings 1 and 2. As we said again, these cave paintings had the structures which are still visible. Now, most common forms that have been seen in the Ajanta paintings are the paintings of Padmapani and Vajrapani. However, of all the paintings of Vajrapani and Padmapani, the best preserved paintings are in cave 1. Cave 2 has numerous sculptures which were similar to the Vengi sculptures and also had the influence from the Vidarbha region. That means the guilds that worked on the cave 2 probably came from the regions of Vidarbha and the regions of Andhra Pradesh. So Vengi sculptures and the influence of Vidarbha was highly seen in cave 2. Now, all of these cave 1 and cave 2 paintings have been orderly arranged. They have been very precise, naturalistic, and the figures have been delineated very carefully to create a 3D effect of light and dark contrast. Numerous stylistic variations have also been introduced in these paintings, and Jataka themes, Jataka stories have been running decently along the walls of these cave paintings. The Chandak Jataka, which is painted on cave 10, represents the details and the geographical locations of how the story moves. This is a kind of event that happened in jungle, and that was separated between various locations. So Chandata faithfully followed the Pali text, and therefore one of the paintings even in cave 17 talk about the similar aspect but with a different style and a pattern. So the Bodhisattva, the Chandant, shows a story where the Chandant is removing the tusk by himself and giving it to the hunter who is the Sonutar. So that is a kind of Jataka story that runs around the cave 10, which is the Chandant story. So Chandant story is very very famous, where the tusk is given directly to the hunter who is the Sonutatra. The next is the cave 1 Bodhisattva. Now cave 1 Bodhisattva painting is again very very unique. Here the idea is the Bodhisattva is shown with holding a lotus in one of the hands. The shoulders are broad, the eyes are looking down with protruding eyes and thick lips, and a good kind of crown structure which is represented. A effect of three dimensionality, as you can see, is represented in the figure, and this figure shows very precise nose, eyes and lips projections that can be represented. So overall we can say the figure composition is very very unique, very very precise, and most of the Bodhisattva figures are usually surrounded by other small figures, as you can see in this image, and also a delicate lines, rhythmic movement is commonly and precisely seen in most of the caves. Now the paintings of cave 1 are so unique because they are very very precise, they are better preserved, they are in good quality, and as we mentioned, different guilds from different areas came here. So Vajrapani Bodhisattva images have been witnessed. You have Mahajanak Jataka stories, Umag Jataka stories which are part of it. The Mahajanak Jataka story is painted on the entire wall on the sides, and it is a kind of narrative painting where images of Padmapani, images of Vajrapani have been represented, and Bodhisattva has been represented as the shrine guardian. So that is a kind of image which is observed. As we already mentioned, cave 1 is known to have the best preserved sculptures of Padmapani and Vajrapani. Now under cave 26 we have Mara Vijay. Now this is again one of the very unique paintings. Mara means desire. Now this painting represents a scenario where Buddha is trying to meditate and attain enlightenment. Now in this position, the Mahaparinabha, that is the Bodhisattva or the Buddha position, the idea is this Mara comes with the army and the daughter of Mara. Now when they come in, they are coming in with all delightment. Some of those have animal faces, some of those have musics along with them. The idea is to break the meditation of Buddha, and that is the concept that was Mara Vijay, and therefore it is called as Mara Vijay, or winning the desire. So Buddha was so wholeheartedly into the concept that his whole meditation could not be subsided, and that is the story of Mara Vijay depicted within the cave 26. So cave 26 of the Ajanta painting also represents a very very unique structure, and it is considered as one of the largest structural panels in Ajanta. There are very many big images that are found in Ajanta, complex figures, complex arrangements, but reading the stories, understanding the Jataka stories is again a very very important archaeological marvel. Most of the team or the army of Mara that came in have been shown with dancing figures, with music, animal faces and all sorts of ways in order to distract Buddha. So that was the basic idea which is witnessed here. So this was about the developments that we have seen in the post-Mauryan period and how Buddhist architectures have been witnessed. Thank you.